So these images are on your agenda, on your reading questions, and these are just some images I wanted you to see to help you visualize what this contest might look like. Now, when you look at drawings, you often see it like this because on modern axe, the hole is kind of in the bottom of the handle, so you can attach it to your belt. But in the text, it does say that the holes are in the bronze axe heads. So this is another image that shows an axe that has a hole kind of through the side. I'm not sure what this image is because a bunch of weird stuff is happening in it, but it could look like this. And then the Mythbusters, they had an episode where they tried to bust this myth, see if it could be done, and they set up axes like this, which I feel like they probably did some research. Let's go ahead and say this one's the most realistic, but we weren't alive back then. No one was. No one who's still alive today, as far as we know. All right. So the suitors are all gathered round the contest in the bow, trying to string it and then shoot an arrow through 12 axe heads. Now, first they have to string the bow, and no one has been able to do that. Odysseus leaves the hall with the swineherd and the cowherd. Two men had meanwhile left the hall, swineherd and cowherd, in companionship, one downcast as the other. So what they're saying is this downcast is the idea that they're misfortunate in terms of economic status, socioeconomic status, lower class. The idea that both of them know they have no chance in winning Penelope's hand, so they're not interested in this contest. They go out to go about their chores. But Odysseus followed them outdoors, outside the court, and coming up, said gently, "You herdsmen, and you too, swineherd, I could say a thing to you, or should I keep it dark?" So he's like, I could tell you a secret, or should I keep it to myself? No, speak, my heart tells me. Would you be men enough to stand by Odysseus if he came back? Suppose he dropped out of a clear sky, as I did. Suppose some god should bring him. Would you bear arms for him or for the suitors? So he's like, let's say Odysseus came back. Would you bear arms or hold a weapon to support him? Or would you fight on the side of the suitors? So he's testing their loyalty. The cowherd said, let the master come, Father Zeus, grant our old wish. Some courier guide him back, then judge what stuff is in me and how I manage arms. So basically he's saying, if Odysseus came back, I would fight for him, and then people would see what I'm really made of and how good of a fighter I am. So the cowherd is ready to go. Likewise, Eumaeus, the swineherd, fell to praying all heaven for his return, so that Odysseus, sure at least of these, told them, I am at home, for I am he. All right, so here he reveals himself to the swineherd and the cowherd. I bore adversities, which means like obstacles, difficulties, great struggles. But in the 20th year, I am ashore in my own land. I find the two of you alone among my people longed for my coming. So this is kind of sad. He's saying basically like everyone else forgot about me and gave up on me. You two are my only loyal subjects. Prayers I never heard except your own that I might come again. So now, what is in store for you, I'll tell you. If Zeus brings down the suitors by my hand, I promise marriages to both, and cattle and houses built near mine, and you shall be brothers in arms of my Telemachus. So he's saying, I know you're loyal, and if you help me now, I will get you both married, not to each other, to someone, and I'll build you houses. You'll be like my sons, okay? So he's like, if you stay loyal to me, there's something good in it for you. Here, let me show you something else, a sign that I am he, that you can trust me. Look, this old scar from the tusk wound that I got boar hunting on Parnassus. Shifting his rags, he bared the long gash. Both men looked and knew and threw their arms around the old soldier, weeping, kissing his head and shoulders. He as well took each man's head and hands to kiss, then said, to cut it short, else they might weep till dark, break off, no more of this. Anyone at the door could see and tell them. Drift back in, but separately, at intervals, after me. So he's like, they're all so excited to see each other, but he's like, I gotta stop, can't blow my cover. He says he's gonna go in and he wants them to just kind of like nonchalantly walk in, no big deal, not together, just kind of stroll in. Don't draw any attention, okay? All right. Now, listen to your orders. When the time comes, those gentlemen to a man will be dead against giving me bow or quiver. Defy them. Eumaeus, bring the bow and put it in my hands there at the door. Tell the women to lock their own door tight. Tell them if someone hears the shock of arms or groans of men in hall or court, not one must show her face, but keep still at her weaving. Philodius, run to the outer gate and lock it. Throw the crossbar and lash it. So Odysseus is saying that Eumaeus' job is to get him the bow because the suitors aren't going to want to let him have it. Philodius' job is to lock the door so that no one can leave, and they need to make sure that the women are safe, weaving away from what is happening. All right, so now we have to see what happens. Odysseus returns in, asks the beggar, and asks if he can try the bow. They say no, of course, but Penelope's like, let him try. Eumaeus gives him the bow like it was his job. So Odysseus has the bow. And Odysseus took his time, turning the bow, tapping it, every inch for borings that termites might have made while the master of the weapon was abroad. So when he gets the bow, he's inspecting it like you would something that you prize that you've been away from for 20 years. So he's looking to see if there's any damage to it, trying to get a feel for it. And while he's doing that, the suitors are making fun of him because they're jerks. The suitors were now watching him, and some jested among themselves. A bow lover, dealer in old bows. Maybe he has one like it at home, or has an itch to make one for himself. See how he handles it, the sly old buzzard. And one disdainful suitor added this: may his fortune grow an inch for every inch he bends it. They're terrible. All right, so while they're all making fun of him, Odysseus is just doing his thing, getting a feel for the bow. But the man, skilled in all ways of contending, nerd alert, if you think back to the very start of the book when Homer was praying to the goddesses, he said, sing in me, muse, fill me with the story of that man skilled in all ways of contending. So that's like a special little phrase used to describe Odysseus. But the man skilled in all ways of contending, satisfied by the bow's look and heft, like a musician, like a harper, when with quiet hand upon his instrument he draws between his thumb and forefinger a sweet new string upon a peg. So effortlessly Odysseus in one motion strung the bow, then slid his right hand down the cord and plucked it, so the taut gut vibrating hummed and sang a swallow's note. In the hushed hall it smote the suitors, and all their faces changed. So the side margins tell us that smote means struck them, affected sharply. So they're all making fun of this old man, and all of a sudden, just like that, he strings the bow and he plucks it, making the sound so everyone hears it. And then Zeus adds to the drama. Then Zeus thundered overhead, one loud crack for a sign. So all of a sudden there's a big peal of thunder. Everyone's staring at this old beggar who has strung Odysseus' bow. None of the young, handsome suitors could do that. What's going to happen? And Odysseus laughed within him that the son of crooked-minded Kronos had flung that omen down. Kronos is the name of Zeus's father. Yes, the god of all gods had a father. It's a whole thing. So Odysseus is laughing because he's like, Zeus, you weren't always on my side, but here you are now. He picked one ready arrow from the table where it lay bare. The rest were waiting still in the quiver for the young men's turn to come. He knocked it, let it rest across the hand grip, drew the string and grooved butt of the arrow, aiming from where he sat upon the stool. So he's ready. He's aiming with his bow. Now flashed arrow from twanging bow, clean as a whistle through every socket ring, and grazed not one to thud with heavy brazen head beyond. So he did it. And he did it like it was no big deal. He did it in one try. He's Odysseus. Then quietly Odysseus said, Telemachus, the stranger you welcomed in your hall has not disgraced you. I did not miss, neither did I take all day stringing the bow. My hand and eye are sound, not so contemptible as the young men say. The hour has come to cook their lordships mutton, supper by daylight, other amusements later, with song and harping that adorn the feast. So he's basically saying to his son, okay, well, I did this, so now it's time for the feast. Let's have dinner. We'll have another celebration later. And everyone is still stunned. He dropped his eyes and nodded. So it's like, this is a sign. Let's go. And the Prince Telemachus, true son of King Odysseus, belted his sword on, clapped hand to his spear, and with a clink and glitter of keen bronze, stood by his chair in the forefront near his father. So Odysseus just said to Telemachus, yeah, let's make some food. Let's have a feast. We'll party later. Telemachus is like, stands up with his spear in his hand, and they're staring at the men. Do we think they're really going to be partying and celebrating? We'll have to wait till we get to book 22 to find out. And book 22 is called Death in the Great Hall. So there you go.